All right, and we're back. CNT125, Voice over IP lab. We're in the second part of the lab where we're dealing with setting up a soft phone to talk to my Asterisk server. Real quickly, our configuration is this. I have an Asterisk server sitting in the corner of the room. It's running Linux. On top of that, it's running Asterisk. It is designed to handle phone calls. So we're going to take our desktop PC, install a soft phone, register with my Asterisk server, and make phone calls using our desktop, like the soft phone on our desktop. While we're doing that, then we'll do some packet captures and look at the protocols that are being used. First part, I'm going to have you go out to D2L. On the chapter 12 page, if you scroll down to the bottom where the lab section is, I have a link in here for the X-Lite soft phone. Go to that website. Once you're there, we're going to scroll down and download the X-Lite for Windows, X-Lite 4.9 for Windows, if you will. Download that, save it to C drive, CNT Lab Apps folder. Then you're going to launch that guy and install it. Maintain your connection to the college network, install it because it needs little updates and all that jazz. Once it's done installing, what we'll do is we'll move the patch cable over to the room network. You're going to move it to the room network on the pole at the side of the room. Patch cable from the upper patch panel down to the switch labeled Voice over IP switch. So I'm going to pause this while I go move my patch cable so I'm ready for the next part. Okay, and we're back. I moved my patch cable over to the room network. I patched the side of the room, patch cable from the patch panel down to the Voice over IP switch. I checked to make sure I had blinky link light. Came back to my PC, pulled up my command prompt, did a release renew, and made sure I was getting a 192.168 from my Asterisk server, 100 dot IP address. So now I'm on the network with my Asterisk server. What I can do, I can launch my X-Lite soft phone. So I'm going to, on my start window over here, go to Counterpath X-Lite, pick the X-Lite soft phone. It's going to take a couple seconds to boot. Once it boots, I'm going to need to plug in settings for this to register with my Asterisk server. Now, while this is booting, what I've done is on the Asterisk server, I have actually created accounts for every lab computer in the room. So all you need to do is match the settings on your soft phone so that you register with the server. It's kind of a weak form of security. If there is an account in there, it won't register with the server. So I say it's kind of a weak form of security, but it's at least something. You can't just brute force your way into the server. There actually has to be an account over there. So this is booting up. It's finding out that it has no account. It's trying to talk to things that it can't talk to. So we're letting it boot. Once this program loads, we'll get the option to create an account on here. So I will do that. I will match what I have in the lab. I will match what I have in the lab to this. Now, I had used this previously, so I think it's retaining some information. But in the lab, I tell you to go into the there's an option here for account settings. So I'm going to go into account settings, and you're going to kind of duplicate what's in the lab. I'll put my username up here. I'm using SIP protocol. We'll leave that blank. I'll plug in the user ID, CNT125 X-Lite. Watch the typing. This is your computer number here. Watch your typing. The domain is CNT282.org. Password is X-Lite. I can put my name in again, and then the authorization again is the user ID, CNT125 X-Lite. I'm going to use a proxy. This is going to pass the phone call to my Asterisk server. Once all that's plugged in, there's actually no other changes I do in any of these other tabs up here. I will say OK, and it should register up with the server and show happy stuff here, if you will. Presents, available, all that kind of good jazz. What I'm going to have you do at this point, I have a special keyboard we're using in the lab that actually has a little headphone microphone on, earphone microphone on. We'll use that and we'll make some calls and contact the phone server. So I'm going to actually pick this up, try to make a call over to my server, 6601, dial it. It should be playing some kind of... There you go, a little menu. So I will have you in the lab work through and try a couple options here to hear the phone server working. This should sound like something you encounter in a company when you dial in. That's how I have this set up. So I try that a couple ways. Try a couple different options here. And then in the lab I also have, let me scroll down here real quick. I also have in here ways that you can reach your lab partner, the format on how you reach your lab partner to be able to dial them. So try a couple of those things so you know how this works. Have a little fun with it. Try out some of these hidden responses. I don't advertise those, but there's stuff there. Try those out. You should hear some fun stuff in here. Now we're going to dig into the meat of it. Now that we have our soft phone registered with the server, we're going to make some phone calls and do some packet capture. So when you and your partner are set up, you're going to issue a phone call from each other and Wireshark it while you're doing it. So I'm going to fire up my Wireshark here. I'm going to get that situated that I can record. So here we go. So I'm going to start my Wireshark, make a phone call, kind of capture the packets, and then I'm going to analyze them. So I'm going to select my NIC. I'm then going to start my Wireshark. I will go back to my soft phone, and I'm just going to dial the server, in this case 6601. And I should be hearing the server present itself, the little day menu. And I'll let that run a little bit so I at least get some phone call data. You would be doing this to your lab partner, so you'd get your phone call between the two of you. It's run for a little bit, so I'll stop my phone call, and then I will stop my Wireshark. That's enough for what we're trying to do. In the lab then, I have you take a look at a couple things. One of the things we're going to look at is your what kind of protocols are going on. So we're going to go statistics, protocol hierarchy, and see what kind of protocols are being used. Everything 100% Ethernet, yeah, that's not a surprise. Majority of it is IP4, majority of it is UDP. There's a little chunk of SIP here and a large chunk of RTP. So based on what we had talked about in class, SIP is our setup. That was just enough to get it going, and the majority of the traffic is RTP because that's the one that's actually transporting the phone data, my voice data. That's one of the things I want you to see in this, and I have you answer a couple questions in the lab based upon what you're seeing here. After we do that, we're going to look at some of these packets. We're actually going to look at some of the SIP packets and look at the RTP packets. So real quickly, I'll put a filter in here for SIP. So I'm only looking at SIP, and I'm going to have you look at one of these like the invite. As I open this guy up, what we'll see is here is Ethernet IP UDP SIP. This is inviting somebody to a phone call. I'm going to have you look at some of this and get some information off of here. We're then going to look at an RTP packet. And again, SIP was your setup. You see it inviting, trying, all that kind of jazz. We're then going to look at RTP packet. This is the one that's actually transporting my phone data. And as you see, there's tons of them. So I'll have you look at one of these guys and see, hey, look at that. There's your codec. Hey, I think you probably want to note that. That's something I think I have you look at in here. But we'll look at the RTP, and again down here we'll see Ethernet IP UDP RTP. This is transporting my phone data. You know, there's where I see the actual payload. That's my voice data being transported. So we'll take a look at that. And then before we leave here, we'll actually look at, let me pull one of these guys up again. There we go. We're going to look at this again to see Ethernet IP UDP RTP, getting you to realize this is an application layer protocol. All right. We're also going to look at the actual streams of phone calls. So I'm going to clear here. I'm going to go up to the top where I have my my menu option. There we go. Telephony. I'm going to drop down to where I see RTP, and I'm going to do show all streams. This will show any phone call streams going on. I'm going to highlight my phone call, me going. Actually, I can do server to me. That's fine. I will gather some information on here on the actual payload, packets lost, all that kind of jazz. We're then going to look at the actual calls themselves. We're going to look at more detail in here. So we'll do telephony. We'll do voice over IP calls. Here is my phone call that I made. I'm going to look at the flow graph on this, and I should see this looks very similar to the graphic that's in your lab, showing the invite and the acknowledge and trying and transporting RTP and then closing out. I'm going to have you save this. We'll save this as a text file. I'm going to put it in my 125 document. So I'll do something like voice over IP RTP graph or something like that, and I'm going to save it as a TXT. I'm just going to add the TXT extension. That way it's kind of forcing it to be a notepad file. I'm going to save that because that's proof of getting your phone call working. If you were to go look at that in your document folder, I think I have it here, documents 125, voice over IP RTP, there it is. If I look at that guy, there is my phone call stream, and you can actually see Doug Brown making the call. That is one piece of info I'm going to have you save from the lab and submit. Before we leave here, I'm actually going to have you use the player. We'll highlight the phone call, we'll click the player button. This should be able to glue all the packets back together that I can see the phone call and even play the phone call back. So as I click play here, it's actually playing it in my headphone right now. I hear the phone call going on. So I'm going to have you work with that a little bit too. And that's just proof that since no encryption has been set up on this network, I can take all these packets, glue them back together, and play them. That's why in the first half with Cisco, we have all the phone calls in their own VLAN. And the reason we didn't do packet capture on the Cisco part is all of these packets are encrypted. So the phone calls are encrypted and they're in separate VLANs. So we're actually setting up some significant security on that network. Over here on the Asterisk one, I did not set up any security, so we could do this. We could glue all the packets together, just getting us to realize that my voice is packetized. If I grab all the packets and glue them back together, I can listen to them. So I'll have you work with that for a few minutes and give that a try. Before we leave this, I'm going to have you save your packet capture here for submission. So up here again, I'll do telephony, voice over IP calls, and I'm going to have you find your call so it's not mixed in with anybody else. We're going to prepare the filter. What that does is put a filter up here that filters out any other traffic so it's just our call. I'll apply that, and I will save this packet stream for submission to D2L. This is kind of like the setup and the details of the call. It's not the whole call, but it's like the details of the call. So I will come up here and I will do a file, export specified packets, all packets as displayed. I will give it a name of something like voice over IP capture, something of that name. I will make sure I'm doing the TCP dump PCAP file, and I will save that. I will save that for submission. And that way I have kind of like the skeleton of the phone call. And we'll save that for submission for our lab. All right, the only thing I need to do yet in this lab is I will close out my applications. And before I leave the lab, actually probably right about now, I'm going to go to my control panel and I'm going to pick the option for programs and features, and I'm going to scroll down to where I see the X-Lite soft phone, and I'm going to uninstall this guy. I will install it right now. If I don't uninstall it when my computer boots up, it actually tries to register with my Asterisk server, and it's on the college network, pounding away SIP packets trying to register with the Asterisk server that I cannot find. So I will uninstall that. That way I do not have that issue. I will gather all my files for submission. I should have the Cisco switch file, the Cisco router file, the Asterisk RTP graph, and then my Asterisk phone call packet capture. Those 4 files are going to be pulled together for submission. And in the lab and in the Dropbox, I have like 5 questions for you to answer too. Pull all this together, drop those in the Dropbox, and you will be good to go.